There are several organizations around the area that celebrates our local musical heritage. One of the most active organizations is the ACMA.
This organization is a nonprofit 501c3, all volunteer, and everybody that's a part of this and a member have a passion for the music in the country music birthplace here. We've been together as an organization since 2006. We had a museum in the Bristol Mall since 1998. They basically, there was some rent involved. We have to pay our insurance and our electricity and so forth, but they were really good to us. In January of 2013, Alan Hurley had approached us about a year earlier and asked us to move to downtown Bristol on the Tennessee side.
But moving a museum is not an easy thing to do.
Oh, it was very hard. It took a group of probably 10 or 12 people working, back and forth for days, because we were very gentle with everything.
It took a lot of work. We had a lot of volunteers and we was moving in January, February. We had to watch for the rain and the snow and cover things up, and we had trucks and trailers, and we'd catch a day that it wasn't raining or snowing, and we'd load up and come down here and unload it, and maybe get one load one day, and the next day you get 2 or 3, depending on the weather. And there's a lot of stuff here.
And it's not the kind of stuff you can throw in the back of a pickup truck.
You can't do that. You got to handle it like it's eggs.
So here we are at 626 State Street, right next door to the Foundation event facility, and we have moved this wonderful museum with artifacts that go back to the early beginnings of the birthplace of country music. Even predating the Carter family, Jimmy Rogers and the Stonemans with Ralph Peer and those historic Bristol sessions, we have artifacts and records in here that predate that, going back to the early part of the 20th century. And in this museum, if you go around the wall, starting as you come in on the right-hand side, it's a timeline, starting to those predating recordings from even before the Bristol sessions, like I said, and it goes all the way around to the old radio shows that were famous, WJHL radio, WCYB radio, and so on and so forth. Going all the way around the room, you pick up Mac Wiseman, Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, the Stanley Brothers on Farm and Fun Time, Curly King, and you keep going around, see Johnny Cash, Tennessee Ernie Ford, and you end up at present day when you end up on the left-hand side of the room with folks like Kenny Chesney and Dave Loggins and people that have been more in the current realm. So it's a timeline. It tells the history of the music, not only of Bristol but this entire region. And one of our most interesting exhibits that we found is by watching people over the years is this map that shows about 100 to 150 mile radius of Bristol, and all of the famous musicians and artists who are from that big circle from around the Bristol area, including people like Dolly Parton, Andy Griffith, Chet Atkins, and the list goes on and on. These world-renowned musicians and artists that were from right here in this birthplace of country music region.
And it's amazing at the talent. I bet you could go out on the street and stop 10 people and 2 of them would play music.
We have big names, but we also have the little names, people that they don't know who they are, but they help keep the music going through, especially the 50s, the 60s, the 70s.
Used to be, like they said, is the poor folks' music, but they made good music. And you go back in the mountains and maybe through the week or on weekends, they'd gather at people's houses and play music. And they enjoyed themselves, and they really liked what they were doing. And then it came to town, and when it came to town, everybody liked it.
The movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou proved that there is a major undertow of folks in this country, not just in this region. Matter of fact, folks in this region tend to take this music for granted because it's everywhere. But you get out, say 150 miles away from Bristol, people pay good money for these musicians to come and play. Like you say, up in Washington, D.C., they'll pack out a place because people really embrace this music. And Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, the soundtrack, was never in the mainstream of radio stations, but it was #1 on the charts for months. So that tells you a lot.
The museum is now part of the downtown.
It's important that we're downtown. Alan Hurley has given us a wonderful chance here in this wonderful facility. We've moved our pick and porch to Monday nights now, and we've got bands coming from, we had a band in there this past week. It came from Maryland. We have bands coming 8, 10, 12 hours away to come and play our pick and porch because it has it's kind of a legendary stage now. Even though we've moved it, it's still the pick and porch. And we have bands from all over the country saying, we want to come and play on the pick and porch. We've heard about it. So that helps them, helps us, and it helps, right now, basically our biggest income for this museum is our pick and porch. We do not charge admission, but we pass the buckets, and the proceeds that we get from that pick and porch each week help us to keep the lights turned on here. Yeah, it's free admission. Free admission to this museum too. We don't charge admission here, but we do depend on generous donations. Of course, we're, like I said earlier, we're nonprofit, 501c3, all volunteers. So every dollar we raise goes back into this music, whether it's on the pick and porch or whether it's in this museum. And it does take some money, but I tell you, we could not do what we've done as an organization if it were not for our wonderful members. These people pitch in and do things that just amaze me. They work hard. They work really hard to make this happen, and that's because they care.